a narrow area, come in and plant in that line, and then we can germinate the cover crop on drip tape, and we can give a little bit of water with the drip tape. So this cover crop had 4 inches of water in 3 irrigations, and then we had one late irrigation of 7/10 of an inch where we put the drip tape in the furrow just to soften the furrow so it would be easier for the spading machine to work the field. So with very little water, we grew this cover crop field, mixed species. What do we have here? Yep.
Sunflower.
It's related, it's in the same family as sunflower. People grow it for an oil crop. Safflower? Safflower. This is millet. I'm not sure why it's seeded out. Usually the millet we have is more like the Sudan grass. This is Phacelia. You can see some vetch in here. Flax is sometimes harder to find. You can find it in the understory. We also have sun hemp in here. That's that one with it's a legume and it has that little yellow flower on it. We also have sesame in here, which I have not been able to find, but there could be a little bit of sesame here. So we had 8 species of cover crop in here. Have you done biomass sampling? Okay. Do you want to skip the? I have it set up to do. If you're interested in doing it, real quick.
How Phil does it. This is a farmer who does it himself. So
well, I was trained by experts, Jeff and Eric Brennan at the USDA research station. I've watched them sample cover crops over the years. This one is a lot easier. If you're doing a drilled cover crop, then you maybe mark off 2 feet by 2 feet. If you're doing, or 4 feet by 4 feet, it's a lot more work to gather up the biomass. When you're on 40-inch beds, you can make a quick calculation. What I do on this one is I will measure 39 1/4 inches, and I will cut everything, and then I can weigh it. Somebody who's good at...
when they said that they've done cover crop biomass sampling, that's a bit of an exaggeration. They haven't finished the job.
Okay, we need 3 people. One to measure out 39 1/2 or 39 1/4.
All right.
Cut everything at the soil surface and
39 1/4. All right.
Yep. And when I do it, I walk into the field maybe 100 steps, and I try not to pick anything. I just take a random spot, put my mark down, and mark it off and cut it.
All right, Brenda, you're going to help here. Each of them, you're going to help here.
And then we need biomass collectors to go in this tote.
All right. Now, once they cut it, it's going to go in there. All right.
Okay.
Seriously, this is what Phil Foster does himself.
These are a little better shear. I would cut with that one. So wherever they marked off, you cut everything in between that mark.
What are these plants, Phil? These kind of spiky ones?
Safflower. Yeah. And if you can almost cut straight down the row, or you can do it that way.
Now remember everything we've learned a little bit about cover
You can fold that up. You can fold it up, bend it, whatever you need to do to get it in the box.
What numbers we got in your broccoli field, what numbers Richard and we're talking about this morning. Let's see what Phil...
You got great numbers for the point, right?
Yeah, did he tell you how you did this? Everything done? Single line? Yeah.
We had a little, we talked about it briefly, how we can do a single line, and it is our one chance to do a cover crop in the summer months when we have very little water. The weeds can go in too.
Every week counts. Everything counts. Phil, do you have any feel for this one right there or not?
I've sampled this field, so I have an idea.
Okay, all right. Bring it over here now. Over there, Phil?
Yep.
in over here.
Sorry, Jeff, I lost your...
Oh, that, you got it? All right, no, here.
Okay, you can weigh it?
Go or?
Yep.
Holy smokes.
Okay, tell me the weight.
12.98. About 30.
Okay, now let's take just dump the material out and let's get the weight of the basket.
Just dump it over here, right here.
So if you were doing this, you would keep a represented sample of the cover crop, and then you could weigh that, and you would dry it to get, so because you want to end up with the dry weight, you want to take the moisture out of it. Who's got their calculator handy?
946.
How many pounds?
946.
Let's say, make easy math, 9.5 pounds. Is that close? Okay, so you can do the calculations, but if you have 40-inch beds and you take 39 1/4, 4 times that will give you 1/1000th of an acre. So if you take, what was it? 9.5, what'd you tell me, 9.5?
946.
Okay. 9.5 is easy for me. So you take 4 times that, that's 38 pounds. So that's if you would have cut 4 samples and they were all the same, that's 38 pounds out of 4 39-inch samples. That's 1/1000th of an acre. So that's how many pounds wet material per acre.
So it was 38, and then what was after that?
So we're saying that we sampled 4 spots.
Yes.
So that's 1/1000th of an acre.
So it'd be 38 divided by 1,000?
No.
No.
38 times 1,000.
It's times, okay.
So 9.44 times.
Oh, there you go.
30.
So what'd you, 38,000? So that gives you the fresh weight. Now, what would the dry weight be? You know, I'm thinking with big stem stuff like the sunflower, it's probably going to have a relatively high dry weight. When I've dried samples, you know, they'll be somewhere between 9 and 14%. A 9% might be something that's a straight veg, you know, very, very light material, probably a lot of moisture, not a lot of heavy material in it. So I'm going to, let's say this would dry down to 12%. So you take 12% times 38,000.
Anybody can do it?
I'm on it. 4,500.
So it's about a little over 4,000 pounds dry weight biomass in this cover crop. And this was just a sample. We did 1 spot. If we did, 4 samples, it'd be more accurate. If we did 8 samples or whatever, it would be more and more accurate. But at least we have an idea. It might be around 4,000 pounds, might be 3,000. I've measured different cover crops that have been this high, full cover crops. They can be 8 to 12,000 pounds. So for a cover crop that we had for 60 days, that we put very little water on and can get 4,000 pounds of biomass, it contributes quite a bit to our soil. So that was the, thanks for indulging me on the exercise.
A lot of experience and knowledge, and he does this a lot himself, there, just to know that. All right, so quick question here. Would this cover crop get the credit over in Salinas? Yes or no? The nitrogen credit that we've heard so much about from Eric and Richard. Simple answer. Well, why not? What?
You didn't put any nitrogen on it?
Well, no, but no, you're right. But I'm just saying. But this is not a cereal cover crop. All right, Phil is doing a very diverse mixture here.
Well, you could still have sunflower, you could have safflower, you could have the Sudan grass. But once you put the legumes in there, then the way the water board looks at credits, they're not giving you credit for a legume. I'm not looking for credits from the water board because I don't add a lot of nitrogen off farm nitrogen, and I need the nitrogen produced from the cover crop. So the legume is beneficial to me, even though I wouldn't get a credit for it.
All right, good.
I don't know if that answers.
No. What?
Do you ever have to adjust the pH of your soil from the legumes?
Our soil pH is 7.5 to 7.8, and I would like it. I don't want it to get to 8. I want it to stay 7.5 to 7. So
The legumes are helping.
the cover crops are helping because in the breakdown there's acids formed that probably help buffer the pH a little bit, but then we do add gypsum also to help lower the pH. So this is a single line cover crop that was planted in late September. So a month later, maybe 5 weeks of growth on it. You can see it doesn't grow as much as the days get shorter. We can keep this over winter. What crop did we plant on, follow and plant right on top of?
Onion?
Yeah, so you see we didn't even disturb the onions after harvest. We just came in, ran the strip tiller, planted our mixed species cover crop, put the drip tape, and we're off and running. And this will probably keep over winter. Safflower or the sunflower, the summer species aren't going to last over the winter, but the vetches and phacelia will take off nicely.
Going around? Which way we headed?
Big loop this way.
Okay, all right. Well, I'll meet you back on this side over here.
Harvest the cover crops to sell?
We don't. We don't even harvest them to put them in a feedstock for the compost. We feel like they're valuable where they are. You know, somebody, depending what was in the cover, what somebody grew, maybe they could take it to a seed crop and maybe harvest, you know, if you grew a vetch or something, or maybe there would be some benefit to, especially if they didn't want all the residue for whatever reason. But for our situation, I think all that is important to work back into the soil.
Do you ever save seeds from your crops?
I have one insectary called Dania coriander. We save seed, and I've saved a little bit of garlic. Those are about the only ones that I save anymore. I've tried to do heirloom tomato seed, but I can get better quality heirloom tomato seed than what I. And then it's another thing to keep track of and kind of another enterprise. So in the early 2000s, well, in the history of this farm, there's been wildlife that have come through the farm. We used to get 20, 25 deer coming through at night, and they can be fairly destructive, but what was really destructive was feral pigs. So out of these hills at certain years, maybe when it's drier, they don't have food up there, they will come out of the hills, and we would get a pretty large amount of wild pigs in here. We have planted potatoes, and we've had maybe a couple acres potatoes, and in one night they've dug up a quarter of the potatoes. So we have this game fence we put in, we have 12,000 feet that goes around this farm. So all the crops are protected. So it was mainly to keep larger animals from coming through the farm, deer. It offered a security for the farm after we put it up. People can't come in quite as easy. I mean, this is kind of an isolated area out here. We don't want people roaming around the farm. And subsequently, with the food safety things that came up, this has been a benefit for food safety. So we go through food safety audits, and this is a benefit because, you know, we are surrounded by grazing land, and people are concerned, even besides wild animals passing through, you know, can domestic animals get away and cross through fields? That's a concern. So this does give us a level of protection. The California deer cannot jump this fence. You know, maybe an East Coast deer or a larger deer this might not be tall enough, but this is tall enough for the deer, the coastal deer. I've seen bobcats climb over this or go through the fence. We do put this smaller screen up here just to keep squirrels, lessens the squirrel invasion from the outside. This is a riparian area. The north end of the farm, we entered the farm, was part of that riparian area, and we have added a lot of species to that riparian strip.
Pesticides or anything? Really useful, like
I haven't done so much. We do have a bug vacuum for vacuum. It is helpful at certain times for cucumber beetle. We have caught those in nets, and we've had quite a few of them. We kind of thought about making some kind of liquid material out of their bodies, but never pursued it. I'm not sure that it's even how beneficial it is.
I mean, maybe if you had nitrogen.
We have taken some of our garlic and crushed it, and years ago made a garlic spray, but I never saw any benefit from doing that.
Do you have like your fruit growing around here? Like wild sunflowers.
I'm not sure if I know what those are.
They just like the sunflowers with like lots of eggs pop up on them.
So these are Nantes carrot. Well, I cut them off with the, of course, Nantes. These are Yaya. It's a carrot variety that we like. We can get organic seed. The one variety we liked for years and years was Nelson, but Bejo Seeds dropped it, and this was one of their replacements. So these will generally there'll be a blunted carrot. They will maybe get a little bit longer than this. This is our next field to harvest. This is probably going to be harvested in maybe the next 10 days. We don't want to be in the low end of the ranch too much later than this, because one of the issues with digging carrots in a heavy clay soil is all the mud that's going to come off with them when you dig them. So, we would like to have a dry spell to get this carrot out, and then we move to the upper side of the ranch where the soil's a little bit lighter. But all the soil is a clay soil on this ranch. The series is Clear Lake clay, and then here again we're at 5 or 6% organic matter, which is helpful because with the higher organic matter, it allows you to dig a little bit more. You have better soil drainage, so the organic matter helps you even in wetter conditions to get dried out.
So your chickens or they
No, our boundary here, that's Lisa Knudsen. Her label is Pasture Chick, and she raises meat, chickens. She raises eggs. We get our Thanksgiving turkeys from her. She raises turkeys. She also raises meat goats, and then up at her house, she has milking goats. So I get yogurt and cheese from her. So yeah, she has a nice system. Those are all enclosed little feeding areas, and then she has the special guard dogs that take care of the chickens, and also the meat goats. They must be higher up on the hill right now. I don't see them at the moment.
Yeah.
very cool.
Do you have any crops that aren't necessarily profitable but help you with the markets? Kind of big customers come back.
We do sweet corn for about maybe from mid-June to mid-August. And we have pretty good quality then because of low earworm. The population hasn't built up by then. I would say sweet corn is not a real money maker, but people really appreciate it and they get excited about it.
Yeah.
So we do have a few crops like that. We do have a little, we want to get them set up where they make money though, so we are starting to try to charge more and more for those crops, so at least get them up to where they make a little bit or they can break even.
Those carrots, that was one of the cleanest carrots fields I've seen.
For weed?
Yeah, I didn't see any.
Well, Efren does a real nice job on weed control. He's a man, in fact, that's him walking from that white pickup. And then, you know, carrots are like onions. They lend themselves to flame weeding because they are slower emergence than a lot of the weeds.
Do you get a lot of bee beetles?
Yeah, they can be a problem in the summer. So brassicas are a real challenge. So this is another cover crop. This is coming out of another previous crop. And what was that crop? Anybody have an idea? Okay. So we do a little bit of sweet corn. This was one of our last fields. This one was done where we left really all the corn stubble after flail mowing on the beds and did our plant through the stubble on the top of the bed with the single line cover crop.
Something I saw that was pretty effective at getting rid of bee beetles. Farmers just plant a trap crop and burn it with the flame weeder.
Oh yeah.
Have you ever tried something like that?
We have done it for cucumber beetle. Sunflower, I don't know if you happen to look at any of the open heads, they will attract cucumber beetle. So we have planted strips of sunflower. And what we'll usually do is do multiple plantings. So once one matures, we mow it, and the next one is just coming into flower production, and the cucumber beetles jump there. Or we planted alfalfa strips for a trap crop, for mostly for cucumber beetle and lygus. I'm trying to think. I know there's some crops that are really attractive to flea beetle. The problem is in managing a trap crop, if you get to the point where it's mature and you have to take it out and you have this big population, but if you flame them, then maybe that takes care of them.
I know radishes are really common
Yeah.
for that. Easy feeding.
You know, we get sometimes a little bit of lygus and celery, strawberries, and the alfalfa trap crop works pretty good where you maybe have 4 beds of it and you can alternate mow 2 and 2 and always keep some of it in a lush state. You're not destroying anything, but you're letting them always have a nice place to stay. And what that does is develop a lot of beneficials in there too. So these fields are going to onions next year. That's the plan. They came out of cover crop, a nice winter cover crop that got up about this high. Some of it we played around with the roller crimper because we weren't going to plant anything in the summer. We could play with it. This area that's green we have since pre-irrigated because we had a tricolored blackbird population in the tall cover crop and they started nesting. So and they're an endangered species, and had we mowed or rolled the cover crop before they were in there, but once they were in there and we saw that they were nesting, we left it. So that cover crop stayed standing an extra 40 days, so it produced a lot of seed. So we have a lot of seed here. We had a little bit of water to pre-irrigate this section, and so we grew a cover crop off the seed. And now we need to get some rain on here, try to get more of the seed germinated before we disturb the soil. We would plant onions, direct seed, 8 lines on if we do a 80-inch bed top. Anybody have any ideas how to do a no-till onion planting? I think to me it's a pretty tough nut to crack. I'm sure there's very skilled farmers that maybe can do it, but I see this would be a very challenging to try to plant it the way it is. So we're going to have to do some kind of soil disturbance at some point if we want to plant onions in this field next year. And our onion rotation is very strict. We go on at least 5 years. Some over at other ranch we go 6 years, and that is to keep soil diseases from building up in the soil. I kind of hope Jeff was here so he could give me some ideas on how to plant a field like this.
Right, yeah. No-till is really tricky in this climate. I'm from the Midwest, and kind of just wet stuff.
I think it lends itself to some crops or some cropping systems, but in a dry, arid climate in California vegetables, it's a real challenge.
Yeah.
We've had a little bit of success with plastic culture on melons and watermelon, if we're doing transplants.
You're talking about using like the plastic sheet mulch?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen those used in peppers, and they turn out fantastic. But it was kind of a different system altogether. A lot smaller scale. They didn't use any heavy machinery, and they ended up growing like 10 foot tall because I guess the roots can get so deep. I know that's hard to do in a system like this, though.
Well, we've had pretty good success in experimenting in watermelons the last few years. It's probably still higher production if you till, but if you do no till on a cover crop or reduced till, you can get pretty close.
Yeah, always about the trade-offs. No perfect system.
Is everybody still doing okay?
They're a little slugging behind. So are the cucumber beetles your main pest?
Have been a pretty significant pest on this ranch because we have a lot of foothill land that they can build up in the spring, and we're the kind of the nice green thing they come to. And then just our cropping system over the years has really, cover crops, they're happy to go to them. They don't do anything to them, but they can complete their life cycle in the winter. It was mostly spotted cucumber beetle, but we've kind of developed our own on-ranch population of striped cucumber beetle from our corn, our melon, our hard squash production.
Do you like a lot of birds helping with that, or is that?
A little bit. I don't know if they really like eating cucumber beetle, but they might eat some of them. They're kind of cyclical. We've been on a down cycle for a few years, but there's been some years they've been, pretty problematic.
I can imagine.
So we used to, when we grew melons here, we had to row cover them the whole season until we needed pollination, and then we took the covers off.
Is that still profitable when you get a cover them like that?
If they produce, they're good. Yeah, it can be. It just got to where with the verticillium here, our melon and watermelon production was harder and harder to keep at profitable levels, and as soon as we switched to our other farm location on plastic culture, they probably doubled.
Around with like indigenous microorganism solutions, or
For mycorrhizae or for anything?
for any of it?
Not really. I mean, we've made compost tea, and we've treated our seeds with it. We've injected in our irrigation system. The question was indigenous species, trying to elevate them, and I think maybe there are ways to do it, but if you have the right environment for the soil to have a high population, they're gonna put out the the organisms that need to be there. So I think it's pretty hard to change those, and it's pretty hard to figure out which ones that you want to put there. The nature's going to kind of do what it wants to do. We have put hedgerow species in. These were put in 1998. Several years ago, we took out some of the ones that were getting old and replanted, so that's why we have some shorter stature ones in here. Most of these are native, except for a few species, couple species, but what they do is they give us something blooming year-round. So